si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
Vi prego, vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene. Si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
Vi prego, vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene.
Civiltà dell'amore. Fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here with us. This afternoon's session title is not easy. It deals with that mysterious thing that is the presence of pain in the life of men. And it is scandalous. Scandalous and mysterious because nobody chooses it. One finds it in a sudden way. Some other times it is a progressive and persistent pain day after day. And it is binding too, and it pushes people to extreme situations. And quite legitimately, it can annihilate, it can make one close and draw one in oneself. And I think this is the case for anyone, especially when it comes to innocent pain, that is, when it is the children, the little ones, that suffer. But what may happen is also that starting from all this suffering, the pain itself as an unwanted, so to say, occasion can open up the true questions, the cry of why, in search for the meaning of what is going on, in search for the essential that impregnates everyday life, but which must be looked at carefully and recognized. A journey can really start, a personal journey, shifting from the unacceptability of dependence to an acceptance and even an offering of dependence itself. However, this personal journey, if performed alone as individuals or as individual families, is impossible. It must be an extended endeavor, and the care of life, the title of this meeting, represents the anthropological synthesis of a way of conceiving men and women. In care, there are two subjects, the one who takes charge and the one who is taken care of. And the often reciprocal human dynamism requires a conception of man as a relationship. So this afternoon's session wishes to focus on some experiences of care before we could listen to other colleagues talking about the hospices in Russia, which is a really nice example. We're talking about experiences of care, an experience of accompanying together, walking together. I know that there are legitimate worries in civil society about the will of the ill with respect to the treatments that are administered to them, as their will must be respected, and that's fair. However, the pretense to have full self-determination may run the risk to leave all the carers and all the others a bitter taste, in my view, a bitter taste of irresponsibility, of disinterest, of distancing, of inertia in clinical and psychological research, as people may just manage way too easily. As surgeon Enzo Piccinini used to say, care is essential because a man is someone when he is someone for someone. This afternoon, there are some friends here with us that are going to help us in this journey of knowledge of care. Franca Benini is head of the Veneto Regional Center for Pain Therapy and Pediatric Palliative Care in Padua, and she is the founder of palliative care treatments in Italy. Then there is Davide De Santis. In his experience, he founded the association La Mongolfiera, and he is president of this association. Then Cristiano Ferrario, oncologist and lecturer in oncology at the McGill University in Montreal. we decided to try and have 2 rounds of questions to have more interaction in this session. The questions are the same for all the participants. I'm going to mention them once only, so please remember that. The first question is, what was the starting point? What were the needs that you could see in the reality that challenged you at the beginning? And because of that, you started doing something. Franca, the floor goes to you. Thank you, Marco, and thanks to the organizers, and especially thanks to you all. Well, I don't really know whether I am able to help you understand what is the essence in care, but I would like to share my many doubts, my many unanswered questions, and also some certainties. Such questions sometimes require some way out because it is really too much sometimes to find exhaustive answers or to give reassurance to children and parents that may solve all the problems and the doubts and to give an answer. For the work that I do, I happen to deal with many different stories, but suffering and pain and the impossibility to recover are part of life without any philosophy, without any rhetoric. And so it is necessary to give a concrete answer to what the kid asks, or the parent asks, or what friends ask, that is, the people around the ill person are asking. As you have understood, I am a pediatrician and I deal with palliative care. So I help children who do not have the possibility to recover and to help their families. It is a bit of a strange work. It is a very nice work. It helped me get to know many stories, many children that have a wide range of ages, from the fetus to the adult age, maybe children with cancer or many different diseases, neurological diseases or other kinds of diseases. Children that live in different contexts and different cultures and have different religions. But then when you get to the core or what the story is putting in front of you, the questions are always the same. Why so much pain? Why such an unjust suffering? What is the sense of all of this? So when one considers this from the perspective of one's profession, one asks themselves, so what can I do? Am I just doing useless things, or can I do really something? So are you really believing that what you do is truly the essence of what you think is your profession? And all this takes place in a world where words like suffering, pain, death are not buzzwords anymore. Because when people ask why, you find yourself without an interlocutor at the end of the day. So back to Marco's question, how did it start? Well, I can give you a certain answer here. It was a random thing. It was a natural thing, because it is natural to respond to the needs before you. These needs, many times, remain unmet. And it started with a story, as is many often the case with our work. 2 very premature twins. One dies in the hospital and the other manages to survive. At the time, I was neonatologist, and it's a very stimulating job because you feel you can change the future of people. It was about the beginning of the 80s, so neonatology was really different at that time in terms of tools, in terms of possibilities. And Sarah, the child that survived, could survive in spite of us. we announce the problem to the parents. She may be dying soon, but she manages to go through. And I remember when she went home, the parents were very happy because they were reconstructing their family. And we were also happy because we felt good. We felt fulfilled from a professional point of view. And we followed Sarah with follow-ups on a monthly basis. We checked the kid. We tried to understand her clinical needs. And we were not able to listen to the real needs. And then, by chance, I bumped into her father on the staircase, and she had a bunch of papers, a lot of prescriptions. And so I asked the question, how is Sarah? And he had a very weird reaction. He started to shout in the staircase, and he told me, "What are you asking me about? Sarah is ill. She can't see, she can't hear, she can't eat. I'm organizing a new referral to feed her through a probe, and our family is falling apart. You didn't tell us anything about that. You just disappeared." And I remember he told me, "It's not enough to take them out." That's a way of saying, I managed to take the kid out. You have to be there afterwards. And you have to be there despite everything. We were there, but we knew that Sarah was like that. And we thought that nothing could be done to help Sarah and that family. So from that experience, I had this idea to try and do something. And then one after the other, there was a series of people and ideas, and a team of pediatric palliative care was set up. The aim was to follow before, during, and after the illness the interested person, focusing on the kids that are not included in classic medicine, that do not meet the paradigms of healthy kids that can grow up and that is a joy to share from all points of view. And what are the tools that we deployed initially in a very limited way? We have tried, above all, to consider things that were not truly medical. People would tell me, "You are a bohemian physician." We started going to people's homes and talk to them and listen to them, establishing relationships, and decided to make choices that sometimes can be painful, but sharing them with the parents and, when possible, with the kids themselves may become life choices because they make it possible to build hope through the unsurmountable limit of illness. We know that there is an illness that will not be cured, and we have to work on that, on what the illness cannot take away from us, that is life despite everything. On that part of life, we can do a lot. And from that, this long experience started. I remember a reflection in our context, in our hospice, pediatric hospice. We drink a lot of infusions and coffees. And Alessandro's mother, during one of these breaks, told me, "You know, doctor, I have to tell you that life starts when fear is over. When you start fearing that your son will stop suffering, or you can't make it, or what will happen tomorrow, when you stop fearing being alone." So I share the hypothesis of Paula. In my view, too, the essence of care is working to take fear away. And the tools are there. We have to take them back from the depth of our being a person, respecting things without wavering, what we fear to do, in being there in every choice, regardless of the difficulties in doing that. Sometimes it is really tiring. You want to just run away, but it is an opportunity, first and foremost, for the kid and also for us as professionals. I don't know if I answered to you.
No, le ho chiesto se...
I was asking her if these beautiful things that she has just told us come from a woman of goodwill that was telling us about the search and the desire for finding an answer that has not appeared yet or has not been identified explicitly. Now, Davide, the floor goes to you. And the question was, what was the question? No, I remember that. I am Davide De Santis. I studied economics, and now I am an advisor. And indeed, talking about the life care between two professionals of care makes me ask myself why. Well, I'll try to give you my contribution. It will be just 10 minutes, maybe, where you can just take a nap and have a rest and feel this fresh air, which is voiceless air. Well, I am part of the La Mongolfiera Association, an association also of disabled children. We're not talking about children that have an end-of-life situation, but I'd say that suffering is endless. All the people that we meet do not see an end to the solution of what can be considered a disability or problems in life. And I've always asked myself what all these families have in common. And I can give you some examples of these families that are close to me. There is a family with a kid with the Angel syndrome, and I met them during the Mass. They were collecting money to fly to Miami, where they were informed about this new protocol that could solve the syndrome. I remember their tired and lost expression in their face, that they didn't know what to do with the kid. Or another family that had a kid that weighed just 450 grams, and we got to know him because the physician gave them some suggestions at birth, even having a bit of a quarrel, and then the doctor said, well, we have some friends, and we got to know them, and they became almost family now. There is another family, and they have a kid that is retarded, and we met them, and we started to share time together and helping them in the choices that they had to make for the kid, because that condition really bewildered them. They didn't really know what to do with that kid. Or there was a tetraplegic kid in this family. When I met the father the first time, told me that the first desire I had when she was born is that I had to take her to the cemetery. I didn't want to extend her suffering, and I really don't know why we're still here. So all these stories indeed have a kind of a common denominator that may be the therapy, the treatment, but in fact all these cases have very different treatments and aids. But when we are before these families, the first question, as Franca said, is a question about the sense of all. Why us? Why our kids? At the end of the day, is happiness a possibility for us? This issue cannot be solved, will never be solved. And when they ask me this question, I always think about what happened to my family. I'm a down-to-earth guy, and I had little interest when I attended university. I was behind futile things. I didn't think they were important in life, but they made me happy. And when I went to university, I got to know Dr. Enzo Piccinini, that was following the experience of CL, Communion and Liberation University students, and that opened a new world to me. First of all, he had a feature that made me understand that the things that I thought were futile really were important. It was playing soccer and my future wife. And he was really enjoying them with even a greater intensity I could think of. And the other feature is that he had such an intensity in life about everything. He was interested in the lessons, in politics, in friendship, in jobs. In his job, he was traveling the world. And this always impressed me so much because he made me think that it is possible to be even happier than I thought, especially with an incredible intensity. And it was contagious because I had friends from there that helped me go on in that way. Such an intensity was a consequence. I remember very well when he had a dialogue with Father Giussani, and Father Giussani asked him, "What does loving your kids mean?" And he said, "That means I cover them with a blanket, I just hug them." And I was interested in Sarah at that time, my wife, and I imagined that now hugging her, giving her my affection. And Father Giussani stopped him and said, "If you love your kids, it means that you are interested in their destiny." And that word changed it all. It gave sense to that intensity. It is as if he gave a face to that, a shape to that, which I couldn't give before. And luckily, I had friends from that onwards that stimulated me in that direction, to look at that and to try and attend to that intensity. And later, I could detect that in pain. In 2006, we won the championship. I got married. In 2008, we got the news that basically my wife was pregnant of 2 twins. I thought to have 2 twins, 2 male twins, and to set up a soccer team by myself, but that was a failure because they were 2 female twins, and I had 4 female, 4 little girls. Well, they are wonderful, and they are a wonderful team. But when we go to the morphology checkup, after an endless minutes of silence, the physician there starts mumbling with the other collaborators, and all of a sudden turns to us and says, "Your kids have a problem. It is a fetal-fetal exchange." And so one was moving more than the other one, Simona more than Teresa, and basically she was stealing blood and food to the other kid that was running the risk of dying. Basically, in a week, you have to go to Madrid, Paris, or London to undergo selective abortion. While many of you might have had moments of suffering, we were at that time at our utmost moment of happiness, and at that moment it was like being in the beach here in Rimini with a swimming trunk and with your flippers, and in a second you find yourself in a storm in the Himalaya and you don't know where to go about. And when we left there, the cry was exactly what I mentioned before. Why us? I was ready to give my life to kids. Why? We could have had that kind of pain. And where is happiness in all this? So the nice thing is that when one asks a question, the question has to be cried out to someone. That's essential. So we left that place. We called Chiara, a very loving and dear friend of us, for two important reasons. Well, it's not that one has a problem and has a friend. There is, of course, the need to get into the details of the problem, and Chiara had a problem, so we wanted to find out more about it. We decided to go to another doctor who was ready to wait until the 8th month, and the two kids, the two twins, were born, both of them. And the other reason is that such a cry has to be directed to someone, because all alone we run the risk of being smashed. It is true that all our friends supported us around us, and they asked themselves that same question. They came to us, they tried to give an answer based on the experience that they were having, but the beautiful thing was that they started supporting us in all our path as if the question were theirs. That two kids were not just our kids, they were our friends' kids too. They were all looking for an answer, a true answer with us. And I didn't have that answer. We went back to the beach, basically, but unfortunately, when they were born, there was a complication, and the one that was born and avoided abortion suffered during birth, and it was like as if I found myself in intensive care by myself. My wife didn't see her yet because she had a cesarean, and she had to stay 3 days in bed, and I was mad. I wanted to beat up the nurses that were not feeding them, because when there is an ill kid, a dad just wants to solve the problem, and it is as if I took a step back at some point. There is a text by Monnier who describes well this. It is as if I got to know this good destiny, and the only sense of all that is to accept the big gift, the great gift that I received. So I found myself embracing the incubator where Simona was resting. And please stop me if I'm taking too much time. You can slap me, if you like, in the head. It cannot be an incident, a case, and here he's describing the kid that is disabled. Somebody came, it was not a disgrace. We had to be before the mystery that was filling us with joy. I got closer to that bed without my voice as a sacred altar where God was talking to us through signs. I've never felt so intensely the spirit of prayer, just like my mother was praying with her forehead and looking at me. The mystery, this mystery can be nothing but boundness and beauty. It was light as a host, and nothing is similar to Christ as an innocent person that is suffering. This leads us to some points. When one meets something and finds a sense of that mysterious sense that we're talking about, the consequences are different. One becomes curious about everything, because everything that happens is like a gift. It is as if you wanted to see that face. You wanted to define more and more that face. It is a sort of a loving process. When you are in love, you want to find everything. You don't leave out anything. So the second consequence is that you are not fearful anymore. There's no fear. You're ready to face everything. And the third point I want to mention, be careful, is that suffering continues, because all the questions about my kid, of all the things that happened after that, are so many. My kid after that had a disability, a motor disability, and we had to take care of that for a long time. but suffering continues, though positivity is so great that it really shattered everything, and it made our family mature entirely. That is what we want all the families to go to. And I know the second question already, so I'll wait for the rest of my answer for the next question.
Anch'io voglio ringraziare.
I also want to thank all of you for being here with us. Thank you to the meeting for taking the risk of giving me a microphone. Thank you, Marco, for this question. On the sometimes the beginning is not something that you do and does not depend on you. My beginning was when I was 16 or 17. A dear friend of mine got sick all of a sudden. She had a very severe tumor, and she died at 42, 9 months later. I was an average adolescent, a teenager. I was not very smart, and that was heavy suffering. And that heavy suffering was new to me, and that suffering could not be managed at that time. I couldn't manage that at that time. And therefore, I had a crisis in my faith. And I had an intuition at that time. There was, it was good to have those questions. It was better to have to lead a life with these hard questions rather than not having them, and that was very clear. And then when I was about to become pessimistic, or I couldn't find a meaning in what was happening, this person and the way she lived her disease with her vocation, as we would say in technical terms, was such that I was envious. I wanted to understand the reasons why she was behaving that way. She was saying that she had been chosen by mystery. And when you see that, when you see a sick person saying that, is a very strong message. So the idea of becoming a doctor and becoming an oncologist and working on palliative care came out at that time. And maybe, as Franca said, it was something very selfish. It was interesting for me to continue working with people like that throughout my life. And I want to speak saying that I like teenagers where you put the seeds. Then 30 years afterwards, I found myself across the ocean. I'm working in a Jewish hospital in a migrants' neighborhood. I live in Montreal, a French city in an English-speaking country with a multicultural society, and all these patients come for an oncological diagnosis and come from many different parts. And to me, this is an asset. It is an asset, a human asset. All the people are different. And to me, this is precious. And I have a passion for my job. This is mine is a passionate job. Oftentimes, my patients have tumors that cannot be treated. But there's a large number of patients that can be treated and then come to see me for therapies. When talking about needs, yes, there is a need to find a meaning. So the question is, how can you live after being given such a diagnosis? Regardless of the fact of being sick, how can you find a meaning in that? And these are questions that I also ask myself at night when I go back home. When you have a tumor diagnosis, you feel that you can no longer control anything. Usually, in your life, you have the impression that you can control things, and when you're given a tumor diagnosis, you no longer can control anything. So the patients have to come to grapple with that and have to understand that, have to accept that decision, and they have to decide whether lack of control is something positive or negative. Some patients can also be treated. They can recover once the chemo is over. They can go back to their real life. Hair grows back again. But they need to accept that they cannot control things. Otherwise, they risk having anxiety forever. And then there's like that friend of mine that gave herself to somebody else and accepted that situation. And then there are incurable sick people that can find a meaning. Euthanasia, we've been having euthanasia for many years in Canada. And the reason why sick people are asking for euthanasia today is not because they are suffering and they cannot manage suffering, but because they want to find a comfort in controlling what they can still control, as in that they can decide on their own the time and a day when they have to pass away. So, there is a need for accepting the fact that you cannot control things. To me, this means that my therapies, the best therapies that I can offer, are in a way to pray. They are not providing an answer or a solution to the person, but they are a way to pray for that person. And there is also the need to delete my anxiety, the fact that I want to be a good performer. A few years ago, I had an artist, a very beautiful woman who was a patient of mine. She was very sensitive. She was given a tumor diagnosis, and she became very anxious. And without realizing, I was also anxious, and I was always trying to make things up and to solve things. Once she made a test, and she was very anxious before results. I promised her to call her to discuss results, and then it was impossible to meet for a few days. And so we met the next time, and she came in and she was very disappointed with me. She was very bitter, and she told me, I don't know whether I will still be able to trust you. And I told her that I was sorry, but I could promise that I'd actually tried to help her. I couldn't promise to be perfect and consistent. And I also told her, if you want to have a new beginning, if you want to start with somebody new, we can find another colleague. But actually, only God can meet your needs. It's not doctors that can do that. And I was struck because I was guilty. I felt guilty. I said that I was guilty. And there I could conquer her trust. And we had a very close relationship. Then her disease became even more serious. Then I have one last example. Patients clearly need to be seen. The title of the exhibition is very nice, shifting from invisibility to the fact of being seen. I'll give you an example. There was a patient of mine, I really loved her, and at some point she became very serious with her disease, and she came to see me, and she had a lot of questions to ask me that she had noted down, and in the end she told me after all the questions. And then there is one thing that I would like to discuss with you. I want to better understand this option concerning euthanasia, but as far as I've seen you, as far as I've known you, you don't want to talk about euthanasia. And I didn't say that I was Christian. I just treated her. So if you don't want to discuss about that, I'm going to talk about that with my GP, with my family doctor. And I was moved by that patient, because she took care of me, and I felt discovered, I felt seen and acknowledged as a person, and not just as a service provider. So to conclude, in English, we talk about care. It's a beautiful word. And this word puts together the fact that you are taking care of someone because you care about that person. So you have to acknowledge that the other person has something to say to you for you to be interested in that person, for you to be taken out of your bubble every day.
Grazie, penso che...
Thank you. So we would like to stay here forever to listen to you. Second question. Please be short. You have already said and explained how you try to meet the needs that you have and how you try to take up your responsibilities. I feel very strong responsibility, and I feel responsible for working well in my job, because before me there are people with needs, and it is my own professional duty to meet those needs. However, each one of us has to play its own role. And but we also need to work with a team. We always have to work with the patient, with the child, with the families. We often don't give the right value to children. We always talk about parents, but we have to remember that at 1 year, 2 years of age, children make you understand what they want, how they want to be managed, and what their desires are. So it's like playing table tennis. There's a continuous exchange between what you're proposing and what they want. And it's true, there are mistakes that can be made, and it's our responsibility to try and not to make that error. It's a hard work, very hard. It's difficult because sometimes you have to meet the needs, putting together your professional skills and your personal skills and ethics, deontology, and also emotions, your personal emotions, the fact that then you come close to those people, to those children, and you come close to your fears also. And these become filters that can be bad for the care. So sometimes you tend to escape, or you reply in an impersonal way, pretending to believe that there is a miracle medicine, which we already know does not exist. So it's hard work, but if you work in a team, it is easier. And you always have to play table tennis with the families, and especially with children, in this continuous exchange. It's hard work because these diseases continuously change. A mother once told me, you know, sometimes I'm breathless. Why? Because you climb the stairs, you get upstairs, and once upstairs, you fall downstairs again, and you have to start back again from scratch. So it is important to understand from scratch that there is a possibility to take steps back. That can happen. It's hard work because sometimes it's difficult to be understood at social level and also at medical level. Sometimes we use difficult words. We use words that are misunderstood, and sometimes it becomes even more complicated. But as I've already said, it's a job that changes people's life, that I fell in love with, and that changed my own life. I was able to go back down to earth. I'm not denying technology, science, or medicine. I do believe in that. I strongly believe in all that, because they created a different world, sometimes even a more equal world. But without the relationship with the people, without the ability to accept other people, without the ability to communicate to others, medicine is not enough. It becomes like selling something. It becomes like providing a solution to others. But we are alone in providing those equipment. The concept of time has radically changed. Time is totally underrated and neglected in this society. And I learned that from my job. In an interview post-mortem, when a child dies, we, the parents, and the people who follow that child need to understand what has happened. I remember a couple, they sat down, and the mother told me, well, I have to say that we've been very lucky. And that sounded strange. A couple telling you that they were lucky when their child had died. And so I asked her, but can you tell me why? And she said, because we had some time. You prepared me. You told me that there was not much time for my child, and we enjoyed my child, and there was a very precious time. And this is what remains of our child. There are families losing their children in an accident, and therefore they don't have time. And so this message on time to us all, like people and professionals, is a very important message. This taught me that children are great, children are wonderful. You provide them support, and they can change your life. They take you by their hands. Despair is infectious, is transmissible. When someone is desperate, everyone is desperate. The family, the team, the doctors, especially if this despair is meaningless, if this despair can make you breathless. And little by little, children, in most cases, and this is regardless of the age or anything, children can change things. And this is something I learned from children in real life, in my way of tackling diseases. I change my ideas, my relations, my way of thinking, and undeniably, they have taught me to live better. And there are many stories, many examples. All of them are different. Each is important in its own way. But there are some stories that stay with you forever. And I'll tell you one. Davide's story. Davide was 6 years old. At 6, he could already read and write. And he died for a brain tumor. When you give such diagnosis, you already know how the tumor will evolve. This child was considered to be serious. He was never hospitalized after diagnosis. He always lived with a notebook where he would write everything. He drew a lot. He was drawing quite a lot. One of those children that are too adults for their age, but then at the right time, they can give their best as children. Davide died of a beautiful death in his own bed, in his house, with his brother, painless. And the parents said he fell asleep. And the mother told me it was a positive experience, a beautiful experience, without making philosophy of an event full of despair. But that was the evolution. A few days later, his parents came to the hospice, and they took me a sheet of paper taken from Davide's notebook, and he wrote, "Franca, I give you my toys. This is a gift for you," with a big exclamation mark. I look at her mom and I said, well, she said, well, that was him. When I asked him, why would you give the doctor your toys? And he said, because she sees many children, and so maybe she can try and play with them. And sometimes we would play with a Kubrick's cube, and I was always losing. And then he said maybe she would also like to play sometimes. And so when I undergo a crisis, I'm wondering, why can I not continue playing? This is a message that was given to me by a patient like Davide, but there are many of them. They are, for me, a way to go forward and to continue in my job, which to me can only be done that way.
Il mio secondo intervento.
So, I'll be speaking for half an hour. No, joking. Here, the timing is already ready here. Anyway. From the gratitude, an association called the Mongolfiera Balloon was set up, was created. So, a journey for many people came out. It was a friendship that turned into an association. My daughter was enrolled in a state independent school, in a daycare. And I understood that at that time there was not much public money for the support she needed. And especially I was living elsewhere, and therefore the town, my town, was not giving us any money, any help. I wanted to bring my daughter there because I knew that that school was good for her. There were people with a very positive outlook on her. They loved her. And she had this characteristic, as many of us. When she was at the center of everything, she would do anything, even the therapies. Every time that she was undergoing the therapy and somebody was looking at her, she would do anything. And I wanted her to go to that school, and the dean told me, well, the cost is, the school is too expensive, you should pay 7,000 euro. And I was very angry when I got out of that school because it was impossible. I mean, to me, it was inconceivable that I should pay for the disability of my daughter. Then I called my lawyer, who was sitting in the board of directors of that school. So I went away. And with my wife, we said, okay, let's try and see if we can solve the problem. So we asked our friends, so we took responsibility before our daughter, and that was unthinkable. We found many people that were ready to help us. Then I came back to the dean, and I was very happy. I was proud of myself. I did everything possible, and we found the money, and we enrolled our daughter in that school. But then I asked her, but what about other families? How can they do that? Because it was very hard for me. I don't know what other families can do to find that money. And the dean said, well, they go away and they enroll their children in other schools. And this does not just apply to schools, but also to everything else, to the therapy, to education, and to the care. Families have to renounce many things to pay for their children. I'm a consultant, so I know that problems have to be solved as soon as possible. Otherwise, you have to forget about them. And this is the case where I could forget that problem because we could find the money, but I couldn't escape. So I went back to my friends. I called them, and I said, okay, we need to help those families. And my friends said, okay, we're now tired, sick and tired of you. To my dear friend of mine, to a very dear friend of mine, I said, we need to create an association. We have to give some money to those families who need money. And he told me, Davide, there are many associations for the disabled. Just go and see the other associations. But that was good, because then I had to investigate the reasons why I wanted to do that. And then my friends also found the reasons why this association needed to be created. And this association collects funds through events and in different companies. We organize many wonderful events, and then we give that money to families with disabled children for care, for physiotherapy, for backup teachers. There were 4 families that we helped in 2012. Now we are helping more than 400 families. We allocate, about 500,000 euros in 2 Italian regions. And I'll give you more info about that in the future. But the most beautiful thing we do is that when we, the first family I met was a family asking me for some information. I told them about what the association was doing. After an hour, I asked, how are you? And it's very difficult to ask how are you to families and to people. After an hour of talking, this family stopped me and they said, okay, thank you about this money, but we need that money urgently tomorrow. Even for my daughter, we were always wondering why us? This is a question that everyone asks themselves. And this question has to be shared with others. So this is why we have decided that each family must be supported by 2 volunteers, 2 friends who help day by day that family As for out of the 4 cases I talked before, you know that there is a family with a tetraplegic daughter that the father wanted to bury on the first day to solve the problem. So we made friends with that. We make barbecues together, and always we discuss why we are positive, because I believe that our children are a gift, and he's totally against that. So we always talk about that. In the end, I'm always saying, what would you give in return for your daughter's smile, who just smiles when he's hugging her? And there he gets very moved, and we acknowledge that there is something that can give a meaning to everything. And then Davide, it's a child with problems, is disabled, and in an essay he wrote, the person that I like most is Father Giuseppe Danotti, is the teacher, religion teacher, because he talks about Christ in the present, like if God was here. And he decided to take christening and the communion, and that was beautiful. And that was a revolution for us and for his family. And this is what we want to do. To conclude, I'm being too long here. Ermanno, the cripple, this is a German saint, and Don Giussani said he was from a German noble family. He had severe physical problems, and his family gave this child to a Benedictine monastery. And he said that these people already knew the good destiny of that child. It was Herman the cripple. And he took care of that with patience and tenacity. And he wrote a prayer that many of us know. A people that was embracing everything, that was embracing the meaning. And I invite you to see the exhibition now at 7:30. There's going to be another session with two friends of mine talking about Enzo. And I will read to you a sentence written by Enzo. In the book that has just been published, Enzo said that very beautiful letter And he sent him to announce the kingdom of God. That defines the change of your life. Your life has a purpose for that. If you announce the kingdom of God and you take care of the sick. So there is a reason to live, there is a reason to suffer, there is a reason to be joyful, to look at the future, for which a mother is a mother and a father is a father. So this message of positivity was announced everywhere in the world. He was crying. He was giving this positive message to everyone. This is the concept of care that we adhere to in our association. Thank you.
Per gli ultimi minuti che ci rimangono.
In the few minutes we have available, I would like to tell you about a particular story that's not about the average patient. It's very Canadian, in fact. That's a very particular context. That's the story of a young lady that she wasn't even 30 when she came to see me, but she had already suffered a lot and a very complicated life. She was all alone. And she was really, really sensitive with a very special point of view of the world. And when she tells me about her great suffering, that's about gender dysphoria, which is a field I know nothing about. But basically, she tells me that that makes it impossible for her to accept her appearance. So her life has no sense for her. And as I said, she is not even 30 years old. She already applied for euthanasia for this gender dysphoria, and the application was not accepted because the law only accepts physical incurable diseases. So she was really disappointed because she doesn't meet the criteria to have her euthanasia accepted. But then when she got diagnosed a tumor at an initial stage, which can be cured, she comes to see me. And it's really paradoxical because she has no reason why she wants to be treated. So understanding the law, basically, our first meeting, our first consultation ends with her planning when this tumor, this cancer, can become incurable so that she can get to the euthanasia application again. So you see that there's different situations. And I remember that very first consultation, I found myself really unprepared and overwhelmed by the great suffering that she went through. She spent 1 hour talking about her suffering, not even mentioning her cancer. And while she was telling me about all these things about her, my question in my heart was, is it possible that in a person like this that is totally blocked due to suffering, there is still some space for freedom? And I really prayed to God and asked, what do you see here? What do you see in this person? And this question remained after that, because the first meeting ended in a bit of a paradoxical way. I proposed to treat the tumor with a very easy surgery, giving an answer that nobody wanted. And this patient then told me that it was really good to talk to me, and that made her feel good, and she wanted to have more follow-up. Really, we're not talking about her tumor, but we talk about her suffering, and we talk about the reason why she's seeking her death so strongly, with a very coherent logic in a way. In these meetings, sometimes we fight, sometimes we love each other, sometimes she cries, sometimes she wants to beat me up, a bit of everything. And I had a question I wanted to ask her about whether there is any minimal interest in life that we could retrieve. I was ready to go through that. And just a few minutes, she mentioned something that was not related to death, and that she had applied for face surgery, aesthetic surgery, so that she could look like more what she wanted to look like. So I knew nothing about that condition, and I tried to find information, and I gave her a contact of a surgeon, and this person offered that the surgery, and she was so shocked by the surprise that someone was supporting her, not just saying, "Oh, poor thing," but just taking care of practical aspects of what was a kind of desire for her. Well, in that context, she opened up to the desire a little bit to treat the disease, even if maybe we were not on time anymore. Again, and still linked to the aesthetic surgery, she needed somebody to take care of her for a couple of days after the intervention, and she had nobody in town to help her. And I had this crazy idea to get her to meet a nurse colleague in Canada, and a good feeling is established immediately between the two. It's a kind of a miracle to me. And that will take a sort of life of its own, because with Cristina, my friend, this patient started to have a more open relationship. And before my eyes, I had this unexpected development of things that may generate around the company of a person much more than my follow-up. So Cristina invites her at home. She gets to know the other persons. They share interests. They organize some singing evenings. Then they find out that she likes playing poker, and so they organize a poker night. And one evening, I take her home, and she told me, "Well, you are a really weird doctor anyway, because I don't think that many doctors can offer their patients the experience to have a family. And that's what you are giving to me." In that context, with Cristina and her friends, there is this beautiful friendship going on, and I always have to play the bad part of the doctor. Do you want to go through the chemotherapy? Do you want to go through this other treatment? So we get to the point that we decide that she has to be referred to have an important session of chemotherapy, but the hospital has to be restructured in a way, so that has to be delayed. But eventually, I get to take all the papers for her referral, and she looks at me with that kind of spoiled, childlike expression, and she tells me, "I'm not sure I feel like having chemo tomorrow." I tried to kill all my negative feelings at that point. I'm very annoyed, so I said, "Okay, think about it and let me know tomorrow." So I leave very angry, and I remember the precise point where I was in the hospital, where I get this idea, and which said to me, eventually, this is what I like about this person. Her irremovable character. I can have the best plan for treatment, to be cured, to be happy, but I can't reduce this person to the best of the plans I made for her. So maybe she is the right to rebel herself. That was a very big lesson for me. And the last point I wanted to mention is about the last 10 days of life of this person on this earth. And it was about 2 years after the first diagnosis. And she had these poker evenings that were going on, but she had to be referred because she can't be at home anymore. So during the referral, these friends send messages, exchange messages, and they go to see her to the hospital. And she had planned to have euthanasia, and that was a date that had been decided, really. And in those very weird 10 days, I could witness, I don't know if I can say beautiful, but it was something about the humanity of these people that took turns to go to see her and to have food and bring food from home. And in exchange, she would open to these people. She planned to watch a particular movie with one person or another person. One evening we played Ticket to Ride until 11 in the evening with the nurses that were staring at us with a weird expression. So there are a few things that really moved me about that situation. The position of my friends about this friendship, and they were really just willing to get her to participate and to be open and to be seen. She was always closed and antisocial, but she let those people embrace her and to look at her. When the people that used to go and see her left the hospital, she would say, "Please come back again, come to see me again." So for 10 days, I would say, she was saying to Jesus, "Come again, come to see me again." And this is something. And the last morning I saw her, she had to write what was her testament, and legally that was a requirement. So that last morning I went to see her for the last time. She'd take a pen and a paper, and she writes saying aloud what she's writing. And I thought it was just a mere list of things, but it was like a stream of consciousness, a sort of spiritual testament, where with simple language, elementary language, close to the threshold of the ultimate limit, she starts listing very simple, weird wishes, I would say, for the next life. And she was listing these wishes about what she was hoping for in such a paradoxical context. And as I was listening to her listing those things as an unexpected fountain of hope, I thought, okay, that's you. That's your hidden self that I couldn't see before. After living together with Jesus, after 10 days living together with Jesus, now you found your hope again. That's not the happy ending as I would have written it, but this is the way of Jesus to convince and to persuade, which is very effective indeed.
Grazie.
Thank you, friends. As Christiana said in these closing remarks, is that the care of life needs hope. In the novel about the life of Cicely, the inventor of palliative care, hope is made of things that need someone to make them happen. And it is also made of limits. That is, there is no hope without a relationship. And there is the possibility of a question finding the answer within the limit. For those of you interested, there is the possibility to continue today's session tomorrow in the C1 hall, where a movie about the life of Cicely Saunders will be screened too. The last point I wanted to mention is this. Why all this should be fascinating, should impress, and should attend to the believer and the goodwill man and woman. I would dare to give an answer, but I will leave it open. This dynamic is fascinating because it is always possible. It is really the best for those who live it. It is beautiful to be lived, it is beautiful to be seen, it is beautiful to be told, and it is beautiful to be listening to that. Thank you. I now close this session saying that we are here thanks to the meeting, and each of us can give a decisive contribution to the meeting and to participate in this great human adventure looking for the essential. In the Trade Center, you can find the Dona Ora stations with the red heart. The Meeting Foundation is an association from the third sector, so if you make a donation to the meeting, you can take advantage of fiscal exemption during your income report. Thank you.
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
Vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene. E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
Vi prego, vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene.